national place in history rests on her literary achievement. For example, in 1921, her feminist play, Miss Lulu Bett, won the Pulitzer Prize for Drama. But Zona Gale was more than a successful writer. She was also an enthusiastic supporter of library services, especially in Wisconsin, her home state. Zona Gale lived most of her life in Portage, a small town on the banks of the Wisconsin River. She grew up in Portage. She is buried in Portage, and the roots of her support for libraries are also in Portage. Zona's mother, Eliza, believed in equal educational opportunity for women. And Zona's father, Charles, stressed working-class education. Her parents nourished in Zona the cultural biases of colonial New England. They encouraged her to believe in educational self-help, social cooperation, and the superiority of rural lifestyles. But the Industrial Revolution was destroying these traditions. So because of her parents and early life in Portage, Zona later fought to preserve and improve life in small towns and rural areas against the forces of industrialization. Zona's first reform activities occurred at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, where she became a co-ed in 1892. The old university library could no longer handle a growing student population. So administrators decreed that co-eds could no longer study in the library, a direct attack on educational opportunity for women. However, University President Charles Kendall Adams proposed the construction of a new university library to accommodate both men and women. Not surprisingly, Zona Gale enthusiastically supported President Adams's library plans. During her freshman year, she wrote a detailed resolution supporting the new library. This was Zona's first, but not last, appeal for better library services. President Adams and his wife, Mary, appreciated Zona's support, and they and Zona became lifelong friends. The Adams Library became a reality and is now known as the Wisconsin State Historical Society Library. And Wisconsin co-eds have continued to demand and get equal opportunity in all university activities. After graduation, Zona worked as a journalist in New York City, where she fell in love with Ridgely Torrance. Torrance wanted to be a poet, but worked as a librarian. From Torrance, Zona learned about the poor working conditions in many libraries. Zona and Torrance did not marry, and predictably, Zona tired of city life. But she returned to Wisconsin with a better understanding of library problems. Her return to Portage in 1911 coincided with the reforms of Governor Robert Marion La Follette, Fighting Bob. La Follette grew up on a farm, owned a farm, and tried to improve life in Wisconsin's rural areas and small towns. La Follette's progressive reforms struck a responsive chord in Zona, and she became an enthusiastic progressive and supporter of La Follette. Progressive reforms included special library reference services for Wisconsin's legislators under the leadership of Charles McCarthy. Another library service dear to progressives was the traveling library, or library on wheels, boxes of books circulated in rural areas. The Wisconsin Free Library Commission regularly delivered these boxes of books to country schools and stores. But when Fighting Bob La Follette left Wisconsin for the United States Senate, his conservative opponent, Emanuel Philip, became governor, and in 1915 wanted to abolish the Free Library Commission and its work. Zona promptly came to the commission's defense. She wrote in 1915,
"To abolish the Library Commission? Governor Phillip is willing then not to only burn the barn, but the whole town.
In particular, Zona used State Senator George Stuttenmeyer to save the Library Commission. Stuttenmeyer was from Portage and wanted to marry Zona, and Zona used his marital interest to get practical political support for progressive library services. In the struggle, Zona also worked closely with legislative reference librarian Charles McCarthy. She wrote to him for help.
As each new project occurs to the governor, will you send me the specific objections?
Zona's efforts to save the Free Library Commission did not go unnoticed. In 1921, a new governor, progressive John Blaine, appointed Zona to the Library Commission. Zona, in fact, became chairman of the commission, the first woman to hold this position. She especially encouraged the libraries on wheels, promoted new library buildings, and children's services. She spoke at the 1922 Wisconsin Library Association Convention in Milwaukee and at the 1923 convention in Fond du Lac. The Illinois Library Association also invited her to speak. At this time, the Wisconsin Library School was the responsibility of the Free Library Commission. As commission chairman, Zona encouraged the library school graduates, spoke at student gatherings, and supported the efforts of Mary Hazeltine, the library school director, to train librarians for rural Wisconsin.